say your prayers properly. As he matures, he will come up in his back skull and have a little bit more hair left there, and he will have decent parallel planes. But it's not unusual to have a very pretty-headed puppy have slightly off parallel planes and then come up on them. Well, that's another thing that you have to think about when you're judging. Excuse me, I'm coming to you. Yes? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I get into that. Is it, oddly enough, you don't have as much problem with off planes in bitches, I don't believe, as you do in dogs. Here's a very pretty 9-month-old bitch's head. Very close to parallel planes. Close enough. Good girl. And you, Betty Boop, with your eyelashes. Huh? Wasn't that a horrible thing? No, be good. Be good. Be good. This way. Little different kind of a head, but still parallel planes. Very, very, very typical red head with gorgeous eyes, a nice black nose. You're gorgeous, yes you are. Huh? That's, yeah, but taken by and large, remember that I just said something about our party color cockers coming down, according to Mr. Lloyd, back in the days when cockers didn't look like anything you or I would want to have or feed, and they started to come along. There was a decision made that to be more modern, and this was in the 1800s, the dogs had to balance a little bit better, and therefore it would be nice to have them have a little more neck. They didn't know about the 7 vertebrae. And they made the cross to either a Springer or a small setter, which gave some of our more refinement and longer, racier look, which cannot be overdone. We can't get into that. The solids didn't get into that. And if you look at this head and this head, they're both beautiful heads, but they're totally different type of heads. And it's one of the things that you have to learn about the breed in order to evaluate it, that you have red heads and black heads and party color heads. Hello? Does everybody know each other now? Oh, you think she's kind of pretty? She's the wrong color. Do I have questions about this? Because it's a very important point. Yes, ma'am.
I read the article that the man from 103rd, and without showing you, picking up on his article, I think one of the things he meant was that...
Go to that head over there, because keep going to the black and white puppy's head. The black and white puppy's head.
Well, no, not that part, but the other part that he brought up was the stop. And I find some of the English cockers that the people are wanting too much of an exaggerate. Part of his article had mentioned this part in here, of the angle. And I don't know if he was stressing the fact that this angle he wanted, that we want it more exaggerated.
Well, I think what he wanted was this high frontal bone, which we abhor.
Well, I understand how he wrote that with the occiput and going along with that. But he had brought up a point here, which, you know, I had...
Right.
It wasn't most of his article. It's just a small point.
A small point, but he was doing that in order to defend this high frontal bone.
That, the exaggeration there.
Yeah,
because I feel that this shouldn't be exaggerated.
It shouldn't be, but it must be definite.
It should be definite.
I mean, come down here and look at this dog's stop, which I think is very, very, very handsome amount of stop.
Now it still has an angle, too, and I think that's, you know, when he had said that point where this part was so straight, and it's, you know,
oh, but
but he wanted the occiput on an angle with this, which was wrong, of course.
Exactly, and this big high...
And that's why he was bringing up
right,
this point.
Right. And
I have seen a lot where people are saying, well, the dog doesn't have enough stop, but it should have a side angle. It can't be an up and down slide.
I understand that, and any natural stop will be that way.
Right.
What they're doing is building it up with hair so that you've got an American cocker look.
They
but that's hair.
Or they dig it in.
But that's hair. Don't. Yeah, you have to have a slight but definite stop, very definitely. But when it's straight, it's hair. It's not dog. 99 times out of 100. It's not that deep, deep stop that an American cocker does.
And when, you know, how he said the occiput should be at the end of the
He doesn't, though. He's happy. Did I hear a question? Yes. But it's very close. Well, I don't know. I think there have been more parallel, but so long as it's this close, I have to consider that a parallel plane. I do not consider this parallel planes. Well, if we see in the specialist class today one with absolute, can we stop Mr. Forsyth judging and I'll say, see. He won't hit me hard.
They aren't boards on the top of their
No, they're not boards. It's an animal. Jamie, yes. Speak up. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, you know, and that's, we haven't gotten to that part of the standard yet. Looks like somebody hit him in the head with a... Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I think that we all forget that the dogs' heads are as different as our own faces. There's going to be a slight difference, but you can still tell that we're all of one race.
Exactly.
And that is what happens with the dogs, and you do not get them out of a China mold.
They're not made with cookie cutters. Gotcha. The lady says that the heads are just as different as our faces. They don't come out of China molds. This is what makes the breed the breed. Each individual just slightly different in their face and head construction. Some. I gotcha. Expression: soft, melting, yet dignified, alert, and intelligent. You'll only hope that their alarm clocks have all gone off at the same time in the morning. That's a princess. That's an imp.
lights are on.
The lights are on. It's a clown. And he knows exactly what we're talking about.
He's underwhelmed.
The eyes are essential to the desired expression. They are medium in size. Medium. Not little pea holes in the snow. They are medium in size so that you can see expression in those eyes. Explain that pea holes in the snow to that lady. Full, but not popped, and slightly oval. Set wide apart. You don't want them looking at a bean on the end of their nose. The minute that you get these too close together eyes, you've got too narrow and too settery a skull. Lids tight. This is a bugaboo. One of the drags of the breed, that's something I forgot to tell you when we started, that in order to effectively evaluate any breed, you've got to understand the drags of the breed. The drags of the breed in English cockers are long and low and squatty, with not straight legs, with cowhock hindquarters, and with pockety eyes. Eyes that droop and have a nice catch-all thing down in there to get seeds and stuff caught. That's where they came from. That's where they started. That's where the field spaniel look came from. I mean, go back and look in your stuff that you got from the club with the pictures of Obo and all those great old cockers. They were long, they were low, they were squatty. When I started in the breed, Mother had been in the breed for years before I was, or we were together. And when our puppies were born, and got up on their legs at 6 and 8 weeks, they weren't the gorgeous little miniature English cockers that you see today. They were long and low and squatty. And they had enough this to wrap around their heads a couple of times. And you'd look at puppies, and they were fairly hairy. I mean, we were in blue roans and blacks. They were fairly hairy. And you look at 3-month-old puppies on the table, born in the wintertime, raised outside. You couldn't see them for nothing. They had skin, they had hair, they had droopy eyes, they were cowhocked, their fronts weren't straight. And Mother would say, it's all right. This one's shoulder is terrible. We'll sell that one. But this one over here, as ugly as he looks today, those knuckles, that's going to be a big puppy. That'll all come out. He's got a beautiful shoulder, which will never change. This head probably will be a little overdone, but it's got nice planes to it, and it's got, you know, proper. And that ugly duckling of a puppy would turn out to be the best one to live. My mother was a very, very, very wise breeder and a very intuitive person as far as the breed was concerned. Americans being what they are, and I don't know whether this has happened in England too, we couldn't deal with that, of having ugly ducklings and waiting for them to turn into swans. Somebody bred a litter, and they came out looking like almost miniatures of what they were going to grow up to be. Somebody ran and saw them, and they said, oh my God, you see that litter up Sky Ridge? Let's go to breed to that dog. And little by little by little by little, we have produced litters of puppies that when you see them at 8, 10, 12 weeks, a pretty good idea of what they're going to be like later on. And you don't have to go through all of this business of waiting until they dry and waiting until the bones do it. We've changed the breed tremendously in that respect. But always remember that inside, not inside the bones here or inside the muscle here, but inside the genes here, lurks those horrors of the short legs and the long backs and the skin forever and the terribly, terribly droopy eyes. And also the temperaments that say, I want to be a field dog. I don't want to walk around in there. That's in there too. And that's another thing that the breeders have changed. You know, when you are breeders, you can do anything. You may run risks of heritable diseases because of what you're doing, but you can do anything. Look at the people that breed pigeons that have these great, gorgeous faces and the little tiny beaks, but what they pay for is that they have to keep another flight of pigeons in order to feed those pigeons babies because their beaks are so small they can't feed their baby. Remember, as breeders, you can do everything and anything. But remember not to put yourself in a corner where you have to have guide dogs for your great ones. Hey.
The point about the little dogs that we bred to go around here, we have. But still lurking in there is the bird dog, and I think a lot of us have seen those dogs that do that. When confronted with a bird in the hedgerow, suddenly, boom, comes to life and turns into a different.
That's one of the good genes that's in there, and I think that the Kennel Club, with their junior hunters and making those kind of tests available for us, have really taken a step ahead, a step for cocker kind and dogs that hunt, so that they can run around in here and still find the bird in the hedgerow or whatever. I think we have to thank them for that. I knew that an hour wasn't going to be enough time here. The haws are a bugaboo. In boxers, they have no problems with them. They take them to the vet, they take them out. And you see boxers with great bald eyes looking at you with no haws at all. Thank God we don't do that in English cockers. If we do, I haven't found them. This is a unpigmented pink haw. He, like many of his kind, has a pigmented one and an unpigmented one. Do not take off for it. Because if you take off for it, they're going to be like the boxer people. They're going to run to the vet and get that ripped out. And that's, you know, it doesn't bother their seeing. It doesn't bother their expression. If you put in your head that with a lightly marked party color and some of our blue roans, you're going to have haws that are pigmented both like hers, or you're going to have pink haws, or you're going to have one pigmented and one non-pigmented, just buy it. Excuse me? No. So don't trip over that. Be aware of it. You don't want a dog with white around its eye. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the third eyelid. Was she caught? Leave your foot alone. Why don't you put her up and bring the blue roan and tan from down there and let her sit up for a while. I knew I had to have a gopher. Let me talk a little bit about eye color. Eye color is dark brown, except in livers and liver party colors, where hazel is permitted, but the darker the hazel, the better. Eye color is dark brown. It says makes no mention of black. It's dark brown. If you get a black eye in a black head, you have no expression. It's all black. But if you get a dark brown eye in a black head, or if you get a dark hazel eye in one of our liver or brown roan colors, you have expression in that eye, and you've got to be able to read your dog's eye. If you were depending on that dog to work for you, to look in your face, to take your directions up, you wouldn't be just looking at the dog's face. You'd be looking at it in the eye, and you want to be able to see that eye, to know that that dog is understanding your direction that you're giving it. It says nothing in the standard about a black eye. It is a dark brown eye. And the hazel, I'm going to put a dog up later. Well, put her in your lap for a second. This is a hazel eye, and a dark hazel eye. Goes with his coat color. Perfectly acceptable. You can get a lighter eye than that in the breed, on this color, or in the roans, and still have it be socially acceptable. You can also, you can get a little browner eye, not much browner eye than that, but you can get a browner eye than that in the breed. But this is a beautiful eye for its color. I'm sure you've all seen springers and liver pointers with bird of prey eyes, with bright yellow eyes. It's not necessary in this breed. We have this in the gene pool. I haven't gotten to that yet.
I have a comment to make about the field work. I used to work Irish setters in the field. And if you couldn't see their eye, they were showing you the bird. I couldn't find it.
Right, right.
You can see the eye.
It's called eye-to-eye contact, and that's what you want. Sure, sure. Stand, be good. The ears, the only thing that it doesn't say in here in ears, which I feel should be in here, set low, lying close to the head, leather fine, extending to the nose, well feathered. The ear is a folded ear. It's not put on like a flap, like a hound ear or a hound ear. It is a folded ear, which makes it drape and lie like that. We did have some flapped ears over the years, and I was doing junior showmanship at the garden years ago, and a little tiny bitty kid who was just old enough to be in there was showing an English cocker, a dog who I knew called Dunelm County Commissioner, who did a lot of winning. And she very nearly won the whole thing because she got the dog all set up, the final look. This was years ago before they do it as fancy as they do it now. And she was only this big, and she was down on the ground. The dog she looked at it, and she reached her hand around, and she folded the ear for me. And I thought that that was so gorgeous, that this little kid knew that this ear was incorrect and that the ear should be a folded ear. Do you understand what I'm talking about a folded ear? Skull, this is where we were talking about. The skull is not hit on the top with a board. When you look at it, it's rounded and slightly arched. It's not a high titanium skull, you know, a big bulb up here. It's not an American cocker skull, but it's not totally flat. Whoops. Oh, hello. How are you? How are you? It's nice to see you. And Beetlebaum.
What you call a hairy eyeball.
when seen both from the side and from the front. Viewed in profile, the brow appears not appreciably higher than the back skull. Viewed from above, the sides of the skull are in planes roughly parallel to those of the muscle. Stop definite but moderate and slightly grooved. I think we've covered all of that. The muzzle, you want equal length of muzzle to back skull. Only as much narrower than the skull is consistent with a full eye placement, cleanly chiseled under the eyes. Not a big bump there. They're not terriers. Jaws strong, capable of carrying game. Let me speak to that for a moment. The name of the dog is Cocker. They were bred to collect any woodcock that you were lucky enough to hit. And the jaw, and that's a small bird, the jaws only have to be big enough for that. The fact that pheasant came along, that's a big enough mouth for a pheasant. But it's not the little one anymore. No. This bitch's mouth is big enough for a pheasant. A pheasant is not a big bird. But they are required to carry something more than canaries. And there are many American cockers today that couldn't carry a good-sized canary. They've also used them on hare or rabbit. But these, even with the smaller bitches, their mouths are big enough to carry the kind of game you're talking about. They're not meant to be used on Canadian geese. Nostrils wide for proper development of scenting ability. That's self-explanatory. Great big noses, not slitted or too small. Color black, except in livers and party colors that of that shade be brown. Reds and party colors may be brown, but black is preferred. Lips square, but not unduly pendulous. You don't want to be able to take them and wrap them around 4 or 5 times. It should be square. Good boy. Good boy. Square. You do not want this look. That's all right. We'll come to you. I want interruptions. You don't want the very, very dry look, but you don't want that. Yes, ma'am.
Remember that the cocker was not originally intended to retrieve game.
But we have made it to do so.
We have made it to do so. Therefore, we must ask for firm underjaws.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not always considered necessary. We had bigger dogs to
the non-slip retrievers to do. But being as it was, we've made them into dual-purpose dogs. The cocker was not the cocker originally was intended to work in front of the gun, flush the game, which was then shot, and the non-slip retriever who just sat here was sent to retrieve the game. In later years, we have made them dual-purpose dogs where they've found the bird, put it up, and have gone to get it. A hand up here. Yes?
In order to learn the breed or any breed correctly, that you should actually go and watch it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I meant to address in the beginning of the whole diatribe. That when you're doing this college education business on your own head so that you understand these breeds that you're trying to understand, is that you watch the breed do the work for which it was intended. You see where conformation comes into play. You certainly see where intelligence and temperament come into play. You see how the dog looks in the field, not under the direction of a lead and a piece of liver. You see a dog, the greatest thrill you can ever see on a retrieving breed is to see that dog come back in with a bird in its mouth because its head is back up and cocked and arched and those legs are going this way and it's, I've got this one for you, Dad. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And anybody that is interested in judging a sporting breed should go to the field trials that feature that breed, should go to the field trials. And I'm not talking about even the junior hunting and stuff like that. That's not where these dogs have stood up to strict training in order to do the job for which they were intended. It's a wonderful thing, and it makes great sense when you're trying to understand why we're being so fussy about a variety of things like shoulders and hindquarters and stuff. we're never going to get finished. A level bite is not preferred. That was taken out of the old standard where there was a insidious thing that said teeth level. It is not a level bite. We want a scissors bite, and all other bites should be severely penalized. Neck, top line, and body. The neck is graceful. Put the orange roan away for me, if you would. And I'm going to start with the red bitch because of the difference in type, but it is not only an acceptable type, it is one of the types without preference. This bitch is not a big bitch. She does not have a long neck, but it's a graceful neck. It's arched. It fits into her shoulders well. It's a very good length for the size of the whole dog. It is balanced in proportion. And this neck is long enough to stoop to do its work, to pick up its bird, to bring back a pheasant without tripping over it. This is one of the reasons that you have a neck, not just to stretch for the dog show judge. Would you put your hand on her? This dog the same way. It's a different type of neck, but it is a long enough neck for his balance and proportion. Good girl. I'm not going to fuss with these two. I think that perhaps you can see there what I'm talking about. A long, long neck that is not set well, that is so refined in under here that it looks like the head's going to break off. That's not what we're after. We are after form following function here. We're after a muscular, long, crested neck. I showed you about throat a little while ago, that you have to have a little throat. You don't want a lot of throat. The top line, the line of the neck blends into the shoulder and back line in a smooth curve. You're bored with me, I know. There's your curve and the blending into the top line. There's not a lot of wrinkle here. It doesn't come abruptly this way. It blends. It blends. You don't want to see a sharp break here where the neck goes in. This has to do with the set of the shoulder. And the shoulder the line of the neck, the black line slopes very slightly toward a gently rounded croup. You don't want an Irish setter top line on an English cocker. And if you see one in the ring, 9 times out of 10, it's been put there by the person that's showing it. I need something, and I don't know what. Go down to her so that she doesn't have a thing. Switch. Switch. You've seen a lot of people do this. Pull the dog off the table, pull the dog off the table, and then set it up and pull the tail, and suddenly you've got a ski slope here. That's not what's wanted in the breed. Hello, good dog. Hello, good boy. Yes. You want a gently sloping top line. Keep your hand on him. You want a gently sloping top line, or even a level top line. So long as you don't get into a reverse top line or a rumpy top line. A gently sloping top line, there is nothing in it that says more abrupt is better. And you know, dear old Teddy Young, who's now gone, used to take some of the most terrible American cockers on a circuit that you could possibly imagine. By the time he got them all trimmed and washed and everything done about, and he got them in the ring, it used to take him 5 minutes to set them up. By the time he pushed them and pulled them and cranked them and so on, you had a gorgeous, gorgeous picture in front of your eye. And I used to kid him about it, and everything was fine until I turned to be a judge, and he still was a handler. And he'd get in the ring, and he'd start to crank, and I'd say, Teddy, give me a break. It's going to take you 5 minutes to make it look like it's supposed to, and the first 3 steps it takes, it's going to look like the bugger it is. Don't be misled about how a dog looks standing. You can almost judge any breed. Almost, I said, without touching them, apart from looking at their mouths, finding out whether they have testicles or not, and feeling what kind of condition is about them. If you see them standing on a loose lead and moved on a loose lead coming and going in from the side, because the dog then is going to be a natural dog. The only thing that's going to be artificial about it is some of the training that's going to have gone into it to have it stand there. If you talk to shepherd people, you talk to people who judge hundreds of dogs a day in Australia. And they say the quickest way to evaluate a dog is to have the dog walk up to you, stand on a lead, you walk around it, you say, fine, down, across, and back on a loose lead, please. When they do that, they're going to show you everything they have and everything they don't have. It's very interesting if you are sitting ringside to look at a group of dogs when they come in, and before they're set up and before they go on the table, practice a little bit of that. Applying what you've learned from the standard to what your eye is seeing. Make little bets with yourself. When I first started judging dogs, I'd get a dog on the table and I'd go over it and I'd make a bet with myself as to whether it could use what it had when it went to move. And sometimes it could and sometimes it couldn't. And you teach yourself by doing that. You know, experience is the best teacher. You can do all these things that you want to, but until you've experienced some of these things, until you've made the commitment to get in the ring and done as much as you possibly can about learning a breed, until you are faced with a class as a judge, you as a judge, standing on that wool sack with 100 of your peers standing around outside you, and make your decisions, not once, not 5 times, but maybe 35 times, will you have learned from doing this what nobody else can teach you. It's experience. And you'll cry yourself to sleep on a lot of